he's talking. I think this still picks it up.
So he's saying, I did.
Why would
We
we
could
say
see.
Zoom also? Okay. Because then this picks up over here. Okay, so we zone. Here, right here. Leave the microphone there.
It's now 6:30. I'm going to call the meeting to order. In Shay's absence, so that we can't start on time, I'm going to, this is an open meeting. So I'm just going to do a roll call vote with Dr. Coleman. Present. With Ms. Lane. Yes. Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
And myself, Ms. Morrow, is here. We do have a quorum. So because we want to be respectful of your time, I am, the only item on the agenda is the tax rate. May I have a motion to accept the agenda? May I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. We will turn the meeting now over to Dr. Singleton.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow Real. Good evening to the Special Administrative Board, Dr. Pruitt Adams, colleagues, and community. Tonight, I will be brief. We've all been here quite a long day, but we do want to handle the business at hand, which is to discuss or have our hearing on the proposed tax rate. So we do have a prepared presentation, but for our new board members, but I just want to share with you all, districts across the state of Missouri on an annual basis have this meeting, and it is for the purposes of setting the tax rates. Okay, so these are the rates that homeowners, commercial businesses, agricultural businesses, all of those entities within our school district boundaries have a rate that they are assessed that goes along with the assessed valuation of their homes. And so our district has to set this on an annual basis. It's not automatic. And so this is what we find ourselves doing here on tonight. I do have a presentation, so let me get through it. The RGSD Tax Levy. So the Special Administrative Board of Riverview Gardens School District, as a political subdivision, is authorized to set tax levies. They are set on an annual basis, and the rates must be submitted to the state auditor by October the 1st every year. Okay, so typically tonight we'll have the hearing, and then on the agenda for the 27th meeting should be the final adoption of the tax rates. Just some basic components of the tax levy and on the presentation. So the prior year revenue amount plus any allowances for CPI growth is a basic component of the tax levy. They also look at current year assessed valuations plus any new construction. Okay, and then we also set a rate for the debt service fund as well. So we have a rate that we will set for each of those. And there is a maximum authorized levy that any entity can set. It is based on a 1984 rate or the most recent voter approved rate. And in our case, we did have a voter approved tax rate increase through Proposition E last April. And so that is our maximum authorized levy at this time. A district can voluntarily roll back any tax rate to collect less than the calculated ceiling. So at times in certain funds, it may be necessary, if you will, to roll back some of the rates. But you cannot tax more than the maximum rate. Our tax levy, our calculations, we look at the property classes, and so there's residential properties, there's agricultural, there's commercial, and then there's personal properties. Also, the state, for state reporting purposes, asks us to establish a blended rate. And we will talk about the blended rate on this evening as well. Here's some levy assessment data for you. If your eyes are here on the board, if you want to look at the 21-22 rates, the first row across is the 21, the prior year information. And then the second row, 2022, is the current year information. And so, as you can see, residential kind of remained flat. There was a slight decrease of about 1.4%, but agriculture was flat. And then we saw a little bit of an increase in our assessed valuation in commercial property. We did see a huge increase in personal property taxes. And so that is a good thing for the school district because we are the recipients of those taxes as well. So we're looking at about a $250 million assessed valuation. And so I want to turn your attention also to the packets that I have completed for you. And I wanted to share some information here regarding assessed valuation. The very first sheet here talks about assessed valuation. And for all of our purposes, assessed valuation is simply the sum of all of the property values within the school district, okay? And so if we look at, I have several things highlighted, and so I wanted to make sure we had some kind of comparison. So if you look at down row 128, you'll see it identified as Riverview Gardens School District. So if you look across, you will see that the residential real estate taxes, the assessed valuation is $163 million. Then you see commercial, about $34 million. Then we see about $11,000 in agriculture, okay? Of course, that means we have very little agriculture in this community. So we see a total RE, or total real estate values. And then we look at personal property taxes as we go across, all right? We've got $53 million for regular and 173,000 for manufactured. And we have a total personal property taxes of about $53.8 million. Our total assessed valuation, roughly $252 million. And we have to account for any new construction or any TIF in our school district. We know that TIF dollars do not come to the district. They remain within the entity or the TIF district. And so we have to discount the assessed valuation to account for anything related to TIF. And I also just wanted, for informational purposes, to share with you, when we look at our neighbors in terms of assessed valuation. So if you look at Ferguson, Florissant, about the 6th or 7th one, 7th row. If you look all the way over to the right, our friends in First Floor have a $1.2 million assessed valuation, okay? If you go down to the next highlighted area, our friends in Jennings, they have an assessed valuation roughly about half of ours. And we know that they have a student population of about half of ours as well. Our friends in Normandy, about $333 million assessed valuation, okay? Our friends over in University City, $834 million. And our friends just right next door in Hazelwood, about a $2.1 billion assessed valuation, okay? And so, again, if we go back to Riverview and we start from the residential piece, we see that our residents, okay, we get quite a bit of money from residential property taxes, all right? Followed by any commercial industry. And we know our school district does not have a lot of commercial entities, but we get some a small amount of monies there as well. And then I mentioned the agricultural. So at your leisure, this information is just for comparison purposes for you to go through, take a look, and of course, just kind of do some comparisons. And if there's any questions, I would certainly be glad to answer any at that time. I'm going to move back to the presentation and continue on. When we talk about a rate ceiling, we're talking about the maximum amount that we can charge. And so if we look at the residential tax rate ceiling, there's a $5.79 maximum tax rate. For commercial, it's $5.86, which those numbers typically set the operating rate, okay? And then we also have to account for debt service. As a school district, we have the right to authorize a debt service levy for the purposes of paying back any outstanding bonds that we have as a school district. And so our total tax levy ceiling is at $7.57 under the residential side and $7.64 on the commercial side. I mentioned earlier that for state reporting purposes, we have to talk about a blended rate. So when you blend all of those rates together, you come up with a $5.81 operating rate, which was consistent with the same rate we had last year. Our debt service is again $1.77 for a total blended rate of about $7.59. Because the district has reached the maximum authorized rate, there is no opportunity to increase the tax rate to generate additional revenue. Again, Proposition E was a huge success in April of last year, which gave the district an additional $4 million or more over the previous year. In the future, there is a strong possibility that the district could do another no tax rate increase bond issue, okay? And we will bring that information to the board as time comes, okay? So that information will be coming soon in the future. Let's talk about the revenues, okay? Well, what kind of money will the district receive from the tax rate? We set these tax rates. What kind of monies will the district receive? If we look at in the incidental fund, there's about a $250 million assessed valuation we talked about. We look at the blended rate as well. And if we collect 100% of those taxes, we're looking at about $14.5 million that the district could receive. Coupled with what we will get from debt service, the $4.4 million. The last column under total shows about almost $19 million that the district will receive this year. Okay, so we're talking about when the tax bills come out in December, January, and February. Those are monies that the school district will receive. So we get a substantial amount of money from property taxes. Okay, next to state aid, that is probably our second biggest source of revenues. And we are extremely grateful, and I know the board is grateful as well for the confidence that the community has placed in us by passing Proposition E. 2 years ago, that number would have been about $14 million. Okay, and we could not be doing the things that we're wanting to do as a district, you know, offering competitive salaries and those things, were it not for the passage of Proposition E. So these are the recommended rates. I do have another sheet in your package that has this information as well. So the recommended tax rates compared to from this year to last year, you will see by property class. So we are recommending the same $5.79 in the residential tax rate. We are recommending a $5.85 levy increase. It's just it's less than a penny difference for the agricultural rate. Commercial rate, the commercial assessed valuation went up, and so we don't have to levy as much in order to gain the revenues that we need there. So we're looking at about a $5.86 commercial rate, and then we're going to keep our personal property tax rate the same. Relatedly, our debt service will still be the $1.77. That is as a result of our promise of a no tax rate increase, and we have held that promise. We have not raised the debt service rate in the school district for the past several years since the passage of Proposition R. We have a blended rate for the general fund and the debt service fund of $5.81 and $1.77 respectively, for a total tax rate of $7.59. Okay, so those are going to be the recommended rates. We talked about assessed valuation in each of those classes, and the unadjusted levy, which includes the debt service rates. So the district again should receive somewhere close to about 18.9 or almost $19 million in property taxes. So the recommended motions for the XAB at the next meeting will be to approve the tax rates by classification for each property. We will state those and take an appropriate motion. Also, we will approve a blended tax rate, okay? And we stated that blended rate as well at $5.81. Also, all final approvals again will happen at the September 27th regular SAB meeting. Okay, that concludes the presentation of information tonight on the tax rate. I will ask certainly if there's any questions from the Special Administrative Board or any questions from the community at this time, since this is a public hearing.
Doctor, I want to make sure I understand. You, at the beginning of your presentation, you said personal property increased, the percentage change was 31.28%.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to make sure I understand, even though there's a huge increase in personal property assessment, the district is not increasing its tax rate for personal property.
Right, no ma'am, no ma'am. So the rate, we will get additional dollars because of the increase in or the rise in assessed valuation for personal property taxes, but our rate will remain the same. Yes, ma'am.
And then the second question I had, I pulled my personal property taxes.
Oh, my goodness,
I
okay.
just have, well, I'm trying to learn. So special school district, it's not a lot, but are these numbers included in the numbers that you presented, or is that a whole different thing?
Right, so the special school district, just like ours, is able to levy taxes for the needs of the special education students. So that rate or that information that you see that goes to the special school districts is for the purposes of educating the special education students. So Riverview Gardens does not see that money. That goes to the special school districts, and it is for our students though, okay, that they serve. So that money goes to the special school districts, and it is for the purposes of servicing our special needs children.
In our district?
In our district, yes, yes.
I'm just curious of the 18 million, what's the percentage of that for the entire budget?
I don't have the exact numbers, but right now we're talking about, you know, I think our budget right now is about $76 million. You know, and if we're going to get about 18% of that, so it's close to 20% of the budget that these revenues will come in at. Yes. Yes, ma'am. So right now, again, all of this information is due October 1st. And so that the state can start, or the county can start sending out those tax bills. When you get those tax bills in November, around in December, Christmas time, then that's when the district will start to see a huge influx of personal property taxes. And we get them for the rest of the school year. So we'll see a big influx in December, but January will be a big number, probably February as well. And then you'll start to see a decline because usually people have paid their all of their taxes by then. Yes, ma'am.
Collection.
Right.
Yeah.
So the collection rate in this school district has been phenomenal, let me say, okay? We do have a lot of investors in this community, okay? But nonetheless, the collection rates have been very much around the 97 or 98% rates, okay? It's rare that you collect 100% of taxes in any community, okay? But the collection rates in the Riverview Gardens School Districts have been extremely favorable, somewhere around that 97 to 98% collection rate.
Part of the development that I've been teaching is how to relate to the people that have home loans and all of this to them, that you don't have to wait to December to pay your your taxes. A lot of people think they have to wait to December, but you can pay your taxes. You can pay your taxes at any time. So we are putting this committee together basically for sharing that information with people in the community so that more money can start coming in. So I.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
People don't know that. You don't have to.
Yes, ma'am. And there are some districts, honestly, right now, generally, the biggest influx of revenue that we see right now are from the state. We get those monthly payments from the state, okay? And a lot of districts around that November, December timeframe, they struggle for cash, okay? Because that's the only source of revenue they have. But generally around that December and January timeframe, that's when we get that influx of cash from the property tax. So yes, ma'am. Any other questions related to the tax rates? Okay. Going once, going twice. All right, gone. Well, thank you to the Special Administrative Board. And again, there will be documents to sign once the September 27th meeting is over. If there's any members of the public who have questions, they can certainly reach me prior to the September 27th board meeting, and we will certainly answer those questions accordingly. Thank you for taking the time to have this meeting.
There's no further business to discuss. Now I have a motion for adjournment. Now I have a second. All in favor?
All right.
You're adjourned.